Looks like we're live. All right.
I see it.
What's up, gentlemen? How we doing?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm waiting for the creepy voice to tell us this is being recorded.
It doesn't do it with this because it's a third party, right?
I mean, I can do it if you really want to. I can hit the record thing.
No, I think you should say it, Paul. You should replicate the voice for us.
I make a terrible Skynet. I'm sorry, Randy. So,
You don't. If with that attitude, you definitely will.
if you don't believe you will, then. All right. Well, what's up, Facebook? And eventually we'll throw this up on YouTube later. Myself and Rory thought it'd be kind of fun to get a couple of grizzled old gray beards, although Doc doesn't look like he has much gray. He's doing better than the rest of us.
I got more gray than Doc.
Shaped down pretty well.
Guys,
That helps if you hide it. You just got a close crop. That's my theory. That's my theory up here, Doc.
I got you.
Thought it'd be interesting to have a conversation based upon an ongoing conversation that's happening right now in kind of the martial art zeitgeist. For those who may or may not have seen it, there was a well-publicized story coming out of, I believe it's Thailand, of a young boy, 7 years old, who was thrown a lot by his instructor, despite a lot of vocalizations that he did not want to be. And unfortunately, at one point he was hit in the head, went into a coma. 8 weeks later, they took him off of life support. So the number being thrown around, it's fairly arbitrary. It was 27 times that the kid was thrown. I don't know what this means, but it says the coach was not licensed. I presume in that area, the coach needs some manner of martial licensing for permission to teach or whatever. We don't have that in the US. So, and you know, the video, which I've not actually been able to find. So if anybody can find it if you guys are watching and you guys can find the video, I'd love to see the original video. Problem is now when you go searching for the video, all you get is videos about talking heads about the video in interesting accents. I found lots of those. So we thought it'd be interesting. Again, everybody that is on this call has been through it in some way, shape, or form. And we may or may not have a fifth guest at some point if he catches a break. So not strictly about kids, although that definitely will be some part of what we talk about. You know, I train kids here. Randy has, Doc has, Rory, I think kind of avoids them, but that's a different conversation to have. His own, he hangs around with, and that's about it. But we thought it'd be an interesting conversation about, you know, raise your hand if you have been through tough, hard, you know, tough love type training. Okay. Raise your hand if you think there was some value in that tough love style in some way, shape, or form of that training. Okay, good. Oh my God. We have somebody in the waiting room, and the Mightiest Avengers iPhone is actually what he called himself.
Scarlet Witch, really?
The Mightiest Avenger. And, you know, I think we all recognize that there's also certainly a line which is very easily crossed. This one particular individual story is definitely a case, but there's lots of others. And it can be the martial arts, but it can certainly be other sports as well, where injury occurs because the person in charge takes it further than the individual can handle. So how do we find that line, gentlemen? What's the value? How do we nuance this? What's up, Kasey?
Hey, everybody.
I think let's start the conversation with some of the issues behind it and the reason why people seek out this kind of training, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think one of the biggest issues that exists in the martial arts community is a lot of us have gone through ridiculous training that was just plain unsafe, but it was safe according to the standards that we experienced before, and we now know it's unsafe, but we still kind of talk about it with a touch of nostalgia in it a little bit.
Absolutely.
And so some of the students here, that's the way we're supposed to train. It's supposed to be dangerous. I'm supposed to be pushed in that manner. I'm supposed to go this place because, you know, Randy keeps saying like, oh, this is dangerous, but I got so cool because of blah, blah, right? And so there's, we're kind of talking about, some of us are talking both sides of our mouth in this situation. So I think that we still have this ancient thought process that like super tough and like dangerous is the way you actually get good. And I think that needs to be taken out of context. That takes me out of the conversation first, right? Is instructors kind of saying one thing, like it's like how we teach escape, right? Like, don't forget to escape. Now lock the cage, 5-minute rounds. You're like, I can't escape in a locked cage. That's kind of what's happening here.
There's a band of brothers element, right? If you've been through that tough training together in some way, shape, or form, you form stronger bonds as a result of it. So I mean, that's still used in the military today in some way, shape, or form.
There's. Go ahead, Kasey.
No, I was just nodding. Go ahead, Rory.
All right. Part of it's how your bar is set, right? Mine was set in high school football, and I was the smallest kid in my school. I wasn't the smallest boy. I wasn't the smallest kid on the football team. I was the smallest kid in the whole school. And I was treated like everyone else. And I got the living bejesus beat out of me every day. And it is, of everything I went through at that time in my life, that's the thing I'm most grateful for. Because it taught me how to take a hit, get back into the fight, and stick with the plan. And it's something, so tough training has a value. What we have to distinguish, what our job is this distinguish between dangerous training and tough training. To distinguish between scary training and dangerous training. Because you want to deal your students to learn how to deal with that element of fear. If they go through all their training and they're never scared, then when they are scared, they won't be able to access any of their training. If they, I really encourage people to do boxing for a while. It's microconcussions are bad for you. Any art where you're more likely to break your hands than you are to actually hurt the other guy is based on assumptions. It develops courage like nothing else. And that idea of, in a lot of ways, survival, fighting, whatever, is moving through damage to deliver damage. And you have to be able to survive that, and you have to experience it. So it's, I want to talk about this case in particular, because what I found the most horrific about it is that this was the kid's second week of training.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So 27 throws is nothing. We used to see how fast we could do 30 throws, and it's entirely based on how fast your uke can get up. So 27 isn't even a warm up for us, but that was after training. And I don't know anyone who would be dialed in on their break falls at 7 years old with 2 weeks of training. I don't know, is that 4 classes? Was he in his 4th class, his 3rd class, his 2nd class? And you know, that's, you have to teach people how to be tough. You can't just throw them in and beat them up and you know, the tough ones survive and that's your squad.
Well, I think one of the issues with that, kind of like you're saying, going back to high school, is remembering why you're there. And if you were there for the betterment of the student, then you take that into account. When it has to do with your ego, where it has to do with what kind of students you turn out, and the emphasis is on you, then it's a lot easier to damage people. You know, most traditional schools, you've got to do typically 6 months to a year worth of break falls before you do anything else. They don't throw you straight in doing randori or even heavy drills. If you know, you're throwing people on crash pads, things like that. So I think being able to kind of step your ego out of it to start with is kind of one of the starting points.
Yeah, I want to dig into consent too, because this is one of these, and this is one of the reasons why I don't teach kids, is because kids can't legally or intellectually form consent, as far as I'm concerned, by being a parent. And it's like, no baby gives you consent to change his diapers. It doesn't like it. It's cold. No kid will give you consent to feed it vegetables. At some point as the adult, and by extension as the instructor, because consent is super important. Once a kid says, I don't want to get thrown anymore, you should stop. So where is the line? And I really want to hear from you guys on, well, you have to eat your vegetables anyway. And you said you don't want to be thrown, so let's stop.
I have had So there's certainly value in toughness training, right? I don't think there's any debate about that. And I don't think, we have certainly run into, I'm not going to do the old guy and the get off my lawn thing, but like the next generation, soft, blah, blah, blah. But I was a wimpy kid myself. And I recognized that, getting on the mat and getting tossed around improved me as an individual. And I recognize that opportunity exists for others. And that's a big thing. The one time I've really had kids say, I don't want to get thrown, they're still willing to throw others. And that's one where I'm like, well, you kind of have to pick.
Yeah.
I know I recognize I don't like falling. Well, not a lot of human beings do. Some of the weird ones do. They're the greatest Ukis ever. But not a lot of people go running into it, but it's part of the training. It's part of the trade-off. You don't have to, but you also don't get to throw others as part of the equation. So if you want to be involved, this is part of it. Now, we're not talking about people on their second week of training. As Bill said, they don't take falls.
Yeah.
For us, it's 3 months of learning how to fall before you get to throw others or get thrown. And that is just a leg sweep. That is the absolute first basis step for them. So there's a big part and parcel. It's both skill set and consent being played with at the same time. If you want to play, part of playing is the give and take, the back and forth. This is not an instructor tossing you around the mat, and the instructor was the one throwing the kid.
Right. And
Which
I think
makes
that's
it
a key distinction. Yeah.
So much worse on every level. So
I think
Kasey hasn't weighed in yet. Oh, go ahead, Doc.
I was just going to say, we usually call them Christmas techniques. They're better to give than to receive.
Sutemiwaza.
Yeah. So for those, like you said, kind of 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, we'll let them throw people, but not get thrown. We'll let them go randori, but it's usually with Ben or myself or an advanced student who is just there to help that kid get better.
Right.
But once they've been there for a while, yeah, if they're going to throw someone, then they also have to be able to take throws, provided they have the skill set to do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy to go deep in the weeds here because there are controlled falls and uncontrolled falls.
Yep.
And if you're a decent instructor, you can throw a beginner and have them land exactly the way you want to, as safely as a feather.
As long as they don't hold on to you. Sorry, side judo complaint.
So it's but uncontrolled falls are a different thing. And this looked like just I saw some clips and there's nothing in there that actually said this is the clip or this was the kid, but he looked like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah.
Just almost like throwing someone who was unconscious. I don't think he was in good shape at the clip I saw, if this was even the real thing.
I want to go to Kasey, but somebody said, Jay just weighed in and says both bigger kids and the sensei who was throwing them. He also showed signs of distress, like vomiting. Oh, he vomited before they stopped, and they stopped because he passed out, is my understanding, or was knocked out, one of the two.
Well, and the ref, the instructor thought that he was faking at that.
Yes, I heard that part. It accused him of faking it while he was unconscious on the ground.
Yeah.
Mr. Keckeisen.
Yeah, so my neck's getting sore from nodding in agreements and dittos and things. I guess just what I would add to the conversation too is along lines with consent. We talk about a contact contract, right? So you're going to agree upon the level of force that you're going to use, and that's a two-way street, right? So what the uke and the tori understand what's going on there, and I guess I don't know, get into a generational thing too. Just like you said, there's plenty of people that go to a karate school because they want to learn to kick and punch, but they don't want to be kicked or punched. And so you have to come up, similar to what you were saying there, Paul, with a contact contract. It's like, okay, cool, but nobody here came just to get punched in the face, right? So if you want to learn how to punch somebody in the face, cool. Part of learning how to punch someone in the face is learning how to get punched in the face and seeing that that's not the end of the world and how you can fight through that. Having said all of those things, and I think Rory had touched on it earlier too, is you can have really tough training, and it can be smart, right? It doesn't have to be injurious, and you can have don't know if I want to use the word dangerous training. You can have training that can, I guess, have a fear response in the students, or let's at least allow them to touch that without damaging them. And so if you look at like, what is the benefit for the student of this? So and this kid was like 8-ish, if I recall.
Seven.
He's a 7-year-old kid. So in America, that's like first grade, maybe second grade at the most. So without the skills to protect yourself from being thrown, what is he actually learning from being thrown repeatedly all those times? And so it's clearly, you don't want to contain my dark humor. You don't want to make jokes about a kid that died, but clearly he wasn't learning how to fall. It didn't work too well for him. So like the only thing you can see out of this is like, was this some sort of instilling toughness type training, right? We are the hardest school and that's why we're better. And then it begs the question for me, is that almost a cultural thing too, coming out of Taiwan, right? Do kids still get caned in Taiwan? And like, so is what seems abhorrent to us in the West here is that type of treatment of a child not all that different than any given Tuesday in the country that this happened.
I don't know anything about their justice system, but I did see something. There was a conversion. He paid roughly $3,000 as a bail. He was charged in some way, shape, or form, and the bail was around $3,000. I have a feeling it would be a little bit higher here.
True.
If you follow some of the links back, most of the stories are about culture that accepts authority figures, that it's technically illegal in Taiwan to use corporal punishment on a student, but it's almost never punished. It's very rare for a student to be fired for it. So
I think this loops all the way back around. So like, again, we're like the instinct is to pick on the younger generation, but like Rory said, and like everybody said, and Bill said it too, why is the student there? Like, are they choosing to be there? Is the parent choosing them to be there? What is the purpose of this, right? Because if you want something, you'll go for that something, unfortunately to a fault sometimes. And that's the coach's job to stop you, right? Like, I'm sure people on this call have had good coaches have been like, okay, tough guy, that's enough for today. Maybe you should go sit down. I remember Jimmerfield benching me because my ankle and I wanted to show off. He's like, and you're done now, stupid. And I was like in my 30s. So like there's a toughness that's instilled, but that toughness, I don't know if I guess it's necessary, but if it becomes a byproduct, I think it's safer than if it's the goal. Like if the training makes you tougher, but it's not focused on toughness training, that usually ends up safer in my opinion of it, right? So I told the story earlier before this happened, but I had some kids in today and they're softer kids. Not all the kids are soft. You see some of the 19-year-old MMA kids, they ain't soft. It's not the whole generation of people. They would wipe the floor with at least me on this call. I don't want to talk for anybody else, but I've seen them train. They're not soft. But in that case, these kids are a little bit softer. That's why they're here. And their dad on purpose said, I want my sons to be tougher. And the kids agreed, we're here to be tough. So we were practicing body shots today. I'm prepping for the tour with Rory and I'm working lots of dirty boxing. And I was showing body shots. And I don't know if none of you felt my body shot. It's not fun. It's not a fun, okay, one of you have. So it's not super fun to take. I'm a big fella and I can turn my hips. And so I was demoing on these kids. They had pads and all the shields and the gear. And they were like, and they were whining. And I'm like, say, this is where toughness is important, right? I'm like, okay. So like Kasey said, part of this is you have to absorb damage as well as give damage, right? You don't just get to come here and punch people. And they're like, well, it's hard. I'm like, all right, I'm a fat old man. We can agree? They're like, yep. I'm like, awesome. So you guys line up, you, your dad, 2 kids, 2 sons and a dad, 15, 17, and their father. I'm like, you both get to punch me on both sides, liver and spleen, as hard as you want 3 times each in a row. If I don't make a sound, you cannot complain for the rest of this session. Guess who did not complain for the rest of the session, right? So the point of the story isn't look how tough I am. I knew they couldn't punch hard. I'm their coach. I made a bet I was gonna win, right? It wasn't like, like I know these guys can't punch. Look how tough I am, right? But that then instilled it. That reinforced, like, well, if this guy can take it, and we understand, and this is part of it. That showed it without me having to touch them in any way or physically harm them. I just was the example that they could be, and I think there's a good method in that. It can't be the only method, but it's one way to show the toughness that comes out of this, right? But that was byproduct toughness. I was working with my coach 3 hours before, and we were practicing defending body shots, and I wasn't defending very well. So I was like, oh. And that's what I'm saying. So if it's a byproduct of the training, we didn't go like, all right, 500 stomach punches, go. But he got me. It felt like 500 times in sparring today. So I like that byproduct side of it personally.
Yeah, one of the conversations I have with people is the difference between health and fitness and sport. So inherently anything like marathon running. Marathon running is sport training. You are training to a goal. The goal, it may be detrimental to your body in some way, shape, or form. Hence, it can no longer be, in my mind, categorized under health and fitness. It may have health and fitness byproducts.
Interesting.
Training on the mat has health and fitness byproducts, but it's training to a goal. So in part and parcel, it's not playing chess. There are going to be more bumps and bruises than a lot of your average activities. But one of the things has to be safety. And it feels, when I first saw the story of the kid being taken off life support, it felt like a violation of our role as an instructor in that safety, because what we do, at least in jiu-jitsu school, how to break people is the main lesson. It has to be taught with a safety focus or a safety field. And I recognize we're brushing up against that all the time, right? If you learn how to break people, but how do we do it in a safe fashion, a safe manner? Not everything can be done at a slow speed. Things do have to move up and speed up. So where do we find that line? How do we manage it? Obviously, there's experiential conversations to have. At what level? How long do people train for? What can they handle? Randy, you and I have had a conversation. I remember in the past you told me you didn't like separation between entry-level classes and more advanced classes. And I said, well, the advanced students could just take a better throw. I said, oh, that's not a bad separation in a jiu-jitsu judo setting.
So trying not to go too far into the weeds, but feeling like pulled to it. So part of it may be the difference between a jitsu and a do, in that if you're so for people who don't know, jitsu means fighting style.
I was going to say, you have to walk that one out.
Art. Do means way of. So jitsus are supposed to be battlefield techniques, battlefield trained techniques. Do is about refinement of character. And so what could happen here is the instructor may be training old school jitsu. I don't care about you. We're going to toughen you up because you need to go into battle. Where most people are coming in to get better, not just in the sport, but kind of build character. We're trying to help them develop. And if you have a mismatch in that, and that's not articulated well, then you end up with people getting really hurt really badly.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay added on Facebook. And sorry, guys, I'm trying to keep an eye on, I apologize. When I look over here, I'm looking at Facebook messages, and I look over here, I'm taking notes. Challenging the sensei is frowned upon. This is a cultural context. So consent is out the window. So that certainly does apply in a lot of areas of the world. I'm trying to be sensitive. I'm known for my sensitivity.
And maybe we need a concept like in EMT stuff, there's implied consent. If someone's unconscious, you just assume that they would say, yes, please save my life if they were conscious, and you can run with it. They can't give consent. And maybe we need another one of kind of the reverse of that, where I sit there and, like when Jimmer Field pulled you out, Randy, it's I have to not consent on your behalf as the instructor because you don't know what's going on, and I do. Yeah. So I have to be aware enough to pull you back.
Timberfield is not a kind person.
I can't stress how screwed my ankle was. When Jimmer Field was like, you're done, I'm like, really? You think I'm done? Maybe I should sit down.
So we got 5 fairly experienced coaches on here. Who's pulled a student where you're like, I recognize that you're the discretion valor balance right now, you're pushing the discretion side. I'm like, go get some water or here's some ice, just chill 5 minutes, then we'll have a conversation. I recognize your desire to push through. I respect your desire to push through. And I had to do this with a 13-year-old the other day because he was bleeding profusely from the knee. I'm like, you're just not allowed to bleed on my mat. So give me a second. We're going to triage this. Then you can get back in. But I think we've all had that experience where we've had to sit people aside and be like, I'm not insulting you. I just want to make sure things are good.
Yeah. There's the pain that says push through this. And then there's the pain that says you may be damaging yourself. or setting a bad precedent for damaging yourself in the future. And students don't know the difference between that. Hell, most of the time, their instructors don't know the difference.
I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever been guilty of that before. Doc,
Well, it's one of the things that we have to watch for is and part of me absolutely believes this, and part of me knows it's utter bullshit. The idea that with enough will, you can keep going, even though it's doing more damage, and it's a proof of will and a test of will, and it's more about the will. First time I got my knee blown, I did 2 more matches. I couldn't barely stand by myself, and I did not even come close to winning. I just basically got creamed because I was standing on one leg in a judo match. But it was important to me to get up.
all right. So who here on the call knows that they were
stupid.
at something they were injured and they kept going? Okay,
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, and that, so even when you know it's an injury and it's not pain, there's still, at least the people that came up, in the schools that I did, it's still a matter of will.
Well, after
And-
you're mortally wounded, you should still be able to kill 2 people.
Absolutely. Fuck
So,
yeah.
I mean,
Take the bastards with you.
Duh.
Right.
so,
And
I mean, of course you kept going.
so it's really hard for us to try to, like Randy was talking earlier, the talking out both sides of our mouth. This is super important to us. It's a big part of who we are. You're stupid if you seek it out. That's just sheer stupidity. We're just,
None of us said we were
stupid in
smart.
very particular ways. Yeah, we didn't learn any
Well,
of this stuff
Doc.
by making good decisions.
Doc, you're the smart one. You got to be the smart one here.
Yeah.
I have intelligence, not smart.
Oh, there was a question phrased to me on Facebook, but I'm going to push it out to everybody. And I think I have at least a partial answer. It's a question to Paul. You mentioned being angry from this case. How can we, collective we, take responsibility and bring about change? I'm going to throw out there that the good news is this case is lightning in a bottle. It's the anomaly. I think I did a little bit of digging because I got curious, and apparently Japan specific, birthplace of jiu-jitsu, judo, blah, blah, blah. They had like a 30-year track record where professionally like 130 people died in judo training. And that's just the cases that were accounted for because a lot of stuff is very regulated there specifically for judo, but that doesn't mean that there aren't private dojos like my own. And so that's just formal training records. But the numbers have dropped since then. You can't do a physical activity without incurring some manner of risk, right? It's all we play with. Most risky thing I do is I rode a motorcycle. It's far more risky than anything I do on the mat or anything I've ever done on the mat. So we play with that trade-off all the time. We're having conversations like this. We're trying to push it out to the public. What else? Are there other ways that we can do it?
Casey was saying something.
Casey.
Yeah, I was going one way, but that question brought me another, and it's despite the human loss of life being tragic of this, it's very frustrating now that like if you did a Google search of judo now, this is the first thing that comes up, right? So people aren't really talking about judo in the Olympics. They're talking about this kid who died doing judo. And there's U.S. Olympic Judo has, I think it's called the gold medal program, similar to how like Invictus Jiu-Jitsu is pushing to have an hour of jiu-jitsu mandatory for law enforcement. Judo is doing a similar thing, right? And so it's not like one's better than the other, but just getting cops to learn how to move another human body for an hour a week is a great idea, no matter what you call it. But that's not what's being talked about right now. What's being talked about is this kid who died doing judo, which is the kid dying is super sad, but that's the conversation is also sad, kind of like the statistics that Paul was talking about there of all of the contact sports, especially the combat sports. Things like judo and wrestling are statistically the safest, and it becomes difficult to encourage next generations to get involved with something. And one of the reasons it's not that popular is it hurts. Falling hurts, right? And you can stand and do kata and never touch another human being from 10 years old to 15 years old in a different martial arts, and it's super popular. Falling down 30 times a class, even if you're not being thrown down, is uncomfortable. And so but it's a ton of fun, right? It's one of those, it's a participation event. Like if you read about it on paper, like, fuck this, I'm going to play Nintendo. But when you get that kind of endorphin rush and you get that buzz of doing something scary and not dying, and it's almost like poor boy parkour. I'm sorry if I sparked some fear in you, Rory, Randy. But like when you're taking break falls and you're like, oh, this is, things I see in movie, it's a lot of fun, but you gotta kind of dive into the pool to do that. And so how do you encourage kids to do this? And then how do you encourage old cops to do this when the first thing you Google is, let's look into this judo. A 7-year-old kid died. Next, there's a water aerobics class at the Y.
I think the outlier point is super important. Like this is an outlier, right? Like even if you look at so my experience with, because I've been kind of training, I'm just a jack of all trades, like to jump around, ADD brain. And like grappling arts are very safe, but the injuries when you get them are real bad, like your bone pops out or whatever. Where striking arts, you get way more minor injuries, cuts and bruises and bumped and whatever, sore
Brain
ribs.
trauma.
Like somebody has, yeah, exactly, like the brain trauma, whatever. So that's the thing, right? And I agree with Kasey is like, unfortunately, the question from Jay is a good question, and I'm not saying it's not a good question, but the problem is the reaction is this is a sample size of 1 with umpteen million people doing this sport. And this was a coach being horrific. So you always start in your own backyard, right? Just don't be a coach that throws a kid 27 times who's there their second week. You're probably going to be okay. But that's what we need to point out is this is the outlier. When this is done correctly, you can do, like Rory said, you can do it for competition. You only did 30 throws. What a wimp, or what Kasey was trying to say, but he got overpowered by mics when Bill's like, you got to kill 2 people. Kasey's like, only 2, right? Like there's so many, this is such an outlier. And thankfully, this isn't the normal case. Even with Japan, 130 people dying, still statistically, that's super small. So let's start in our own backyard. Don't be the coach that's doing this to people. And I think that's going to be the biggest ripple effect we can do.
Right. Doc?
I'm done talking.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can police our own too. We all know that coach. We all know that instructor. And so being willing to say difficult things to them outside of being around other people when you do it, because you're not trying to, it's like when people talk about sugarcoating things. I'll get off my soapbox on this one real quick. People say, I don't sugarcoat things, but think about what sugarcoating really means. You've got this nasty pill that's good for somebody that they don't want to take. So you make it palatable. You make it a way that they can ingest it. When you really think about what it is. So I'm going to sugarcoat this. I'm going to play to their ego. I'm going to get this into that person however I can so that instructor can hear, hey, this is going to cause a problem and you need to change it. So I think, and again, I think we all know that person or people or that school or whatever, and being willing to say something tough to them is one thing we can do.
Mr. Miller?
I think we're already doing a lot. It's most people when they're doing something bad, it's out of ignorance, and our ignorance has been washing away really quickly. I came from the generation that thought that duck walking was good for you. We would do the equivalent of really bad kettlebell swings with other people. Was just part of the basic training. You tell the judo guys because they're all laughing.
We're not supposed to do that.
Well,
I don't understand the problem. What's the issue here?
and
Ducks do it all day. You weaker than a duck?
You know what's really bad for you? So maybe we should do that less. And so we've been changing. We've been learning stuff all the time. We're learning more about teaching methodology. We're learning more about physical training, and we're learning more about consent. Maybe somebody says, I don't want to, and pukes and passes out, maybe you should stop. Just, revelation, but there you go. And that's the hardest thing, is recognizing when you're the one being a dick. And so we have to have friends that we trust to tell us, because you generally, if you could see it yourself, you'd stop it.
If I may,
Unless you're
I wanna
actually
direct
our
something-
dick.
Well, that's a different issue. I want to direct something at you, Kasey.
Yeah.
You specifically have to occasionally train people to do tough things in tough places, and a certain degree of suck it up stoicism is incredibly warranted. How do you guys handle that line, or what do you do to try to ride that line and not cause too many injuries, I guess, or keep people sharp?
Tough question. Not an easy answer. And the question was earlier was, have you ever pulled someone from the dojo? I've never stopped someone at the dojo, but now in a more command setting, instead of a young buck that kicks doors, part of it's you're not a chess piece anymore. You're a chess player, right? And you have to, and it doesn't do me any good if a par check is a personal accountability report, right? So you check on your guys at the bottom of the hour, make sure if it's cold out that they can still feel their fingers. If it's hot out, they're not keeling over from heat exhaustion, right? But you need honest answers, right? So if you're a chess player and you're checking on your knight, hey, we have knights going to L shape, right? For my chess, I have L move to be sharp. Are you good? And they lie because they're puking in their boots because they haven't had a drink of water, and it's 90 degrees in the 1 week of summer we have in Minnesota. So having to pull back and bullshit check your guys and even force them, right? So it's all right, so at this call's taking forever. At the top of the next hour, we have guys at incident command looking for something to do. We're gonna rotate out whatever. So we have entry teams, so Echo 1, right? So then no one who's on there, right? They've been waiting for hours to be able to go catch bad guys. They're nah, we're good. Okay, that's cute. I used to be young and kick doors. I know you're clearly lying to me. So I have to put on my mom hat, and you guys are gonna come in and warm up. You're gonna come in and cool down, get out of your armor for 5 minutes. The guys who were a little late to the call and came later than you, they're gonna have a chance here, but this is a call that's going to go forever. You'll probably have your chance there. So actually, I guess that's the application of it, is you have to make sure that these people can do the tasks you need them to do to get them to be there, right? To be able to do hard things over a long period of time and be smart about it, right? And not wreck your guys in training. Is a lot of it is I guess trying to practice as closely to as you play as possible, right? So entry armor gets really heavy, right? So we have a 8-hour training day. By hour 2, the smaller your back gets really sore from having all that upper. So even if for CrossFit guys who have had weighted vests and done rucks and stuff, okay, that's cute. Now add ammunition to that, add your first aid kit to that, add multiple weapon systems to that. It gets a little heavier, but from time immemorial, since people have been fighting in armor, you have to become accustomed to moving in and bearing the weight of that armor. So it gets real easy to be I'm going to wear my plate carrier today. No, I'm sorry, you're not going to wear your plate carrier today, because you have to build up the endurance to be able to wear your entry gear for an entire call out. And the only way to do that is to get accustomed to wearing it in training longer than you would probably ever have to wear it for a call out. I got talking a lot. Did that in any way answer your question?
Yes, and added some more, but that's a whole other separate issue. You actually mentioned something in there I want to kick over to Rory, because I've heard many of people on this call explain this. I kind of like your explanation of it, Rory. There's something called the mom rule in training. I was first introduced to it at Viodai, but because this is not just about kids, because this is also about dealing with adults and individualism, and this kind of lends nicely with something Jay said on Facebook to Doc. She said, "Holy shot, doc," which I'm pretty sure is a autocorrect. Never thought I would hear someone say it's okay to call instructors on their shit. Hence why I said it's an autocorrect. I come from a place that's truly frowned upon, and I've been scolding for doing so. And yeah, I think if you've been to anything even approaching traditional in any way, shape, or form, authority rolls downhill like that other Brown stuff, right?
And that's why it usually has to be another instructor.
Well, that's a peer group, right? Somebody, as Rory always says, somebody's going to call you on your BS. But Mr. Miller, if you'd walk out the mom rule real quick.
Okay, I'll do the instructor version. So one of the things that we usually do at a VIDI, like the second or third day, I don't always invoke it unless I feel the mom vibe. Mom vibe is that mothers are really good at knowing when something bad is about to happen. All of you growing up at one point heard your mom yell, "If you kids don't knock that off, one of you is going to get hurt." And if you didn't knock it off within 5 minutes, one of you got hurt. So we throw in the rule that if you get that feeling that something is going to go wrong for any reason, you have the right and the responsibility to call a break. That's the mom vibe. Anybody, anyone who gets that feeling has the right and the responsibility to call a break. And this is where we kick it back, because this is incredibly important. You can't tell your students to trust your intuition if you don't trust your own. And so you can't sit there and say, if you feel bad, walk away, but you get this feeling, you don't do jack shit about it. So this is part of your intuition training or intuition acceptance, is to not ever deny the feeling. And if I've not enforced this, or I've not seen this happen, and I'm not sure what I do, but I would be really tempted if someone said after someone got hurt, "Oh, I had a feeling someone was going to get hurt," and they didn't say anything, I would be that close to kicking them out of class. It's one of those, if you do not, for fuck's sakes, if you can't trust your intuition, you have no right to tell other people to trust theirs. So shut the fuck up or act.
And I think it's super important to walk your walk with that too, then, right? So it's super easy to have that speech like, hey, if you get that spidey sense, if you get that mom vibe, everyone's got the duty and responsibility to call this. And then someone who's not an instructor, someone's like, "Hey, I don't feel good." I'm like, "That's adorable. You sit down. We're going to keep training." "Oh, my elbow," right? So you have to like, "Hey, you know what? That's the rule. For whatever reason, you're feeling this way. So we're going to trust your intuition. We're going to take a 10-minute break here. We're going to get hydrated and, rest and stuff. And then we'll go on to the next thing," especially when everything's time driven and we want so much content done in this particular time. But you can't, just like you're saying, if you don't trust your intuition or support, like, "Hey, my intuition's going off," that's cute, then it squashes the whole purpose.
So I've got one for like all of us then, that piggybacks on what everybody's been saying so far. Every one of us has been injured doing martial arts or some type of sport. And all of us, I would say, are less optimally functional now than we were in our 20s. Is there anything that someone could have told us in our 20s that would have had us change what we did in order to not be where we are now?
So normally I would say no, because I was stubborn like all of us are on this call. But and that's a story maybe we'll share later for the second part of this, if we're doing a second part. But we also have to understand that sometimes people, so there's two sides of the coin. No, probably not. But also, if you trust your coach implicitly and they're being a bad coach, then you're going to force yourself through that as well. So yes, if somebody would have told me something different in a very specific occasion, my brain would function better now than it does now. As I stumble on my words, right? And my volume control, and I'd have speed of speech control. So normally no, but there are cases where if we go back to the instructor-student dynamic, it's a lot of people coming in here. They're everybody, like, we're all like, educate yourself and blah, blah, blah. That's not what's happening. Somebody paid you to outsource their research so you could tell them what to do. That is why they're paying a personal trainer or a nutritionist or a martial artist, right? Is, I don't want to deal with this. Here's money now. You deal with this and I'll do the things you say. So maybe not, but I definitely know some people that have been led down the rabbit hole by coaches that were disingenuous.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything to add to that.
I shook my head because they did tell me. So I know for a fact I didn't listen.
Right. Yeah,
It's-
that's fair.
It's entirely on me. And one of the things I know we all do is we try to phrase it better, hoping the next generation will listen.
Right.
I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that.
Well, there's some biological stuff going on there that, you know, makes it developmental things that make it really difficult to see that far ahead. And yeah, you're gonna have jank knees, but that's a distant elephant, you know. Compared to my thumb, it's like tiny till it gets.
Next week's call, when did we all suddenly feel our mortality?
One of the best training quotes I heard was from a coach at the Y that was coaching somebody else. And she said, hey, do you remember the story of that one athlete that fought through the pain and their injuries self-healed? And the guy's like, no. He's like, yeah, neither have I. So
Yeah. Discretion, valor. Discretion, valor.
So I've got one for you, Rory.
Cool.
Is there such thing as informed consent? With
Oh,
someone
boy.
who has not experienced it.
Get comfortable, kids.
Bouncing this around forever because it's one of the. No, this is important, and I'll call you and raise you.
Oh, boy.
In any kind of deep teaching, the person's going to leave as a different person. And neither you nor the instructor nor they, the student, can know exactly how they're going to change, only that they are going to change. So informed consent is impossible.
Right?
And this is one of the, I think we have to recognize that consent is a construct. It's not something that exists in nature. It's something that we choose to believe because it makes the world a better place. But we also have to recognize its limitations. And so I think the most important part within that context is that the consent has to be revocable. If the person gets to their edge, could say, it's like, I know I said I signed up for this class, but I don't, it's like, okay, you're free to go. It's not. So did that answer?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think too. So yeah, don't know if it's right, but we both think the same thing.
It's important to have the humility to know that we don't know it, because I really sometimes want to think I know what's best for you as a student. I know what you need to do. And if you disagree, I have the responsibility to go with your choice because it's your life. And that's hard sometimes because I'm generally quite arrogant and pretty sure I'm right.
Well, I think too, that's going to depend on what their stated goal is. I know what you need to do in order to gain a black belt in our system. I do know that, but I don't know what you need to do in order to feel safe.
Okay, and rabbit holing that one, because that's when there's a stated goal. There's what they think they want or what they say they want, which almost never is what they actually want or what they need. And that's one of the meta things as an instructor is that being able to see the question behind the words.
Shout out to Jeff Berger. Actually, I'm wearing a shirt, Coach Jeff Berger. One of his saying that I always use is the reason that somebody starts martial arts is often not the reason they stay, right? And so I think that's exactly what this is. Like, you started because you wanted to be Batman, and then you realize, like, oh, my hips feel better now. This is why I'm going to stick around, or whatever the case may be. So I think that's important. And I think on the side of informed consent, although I don't know why I'm jumping on this topic. But on this topic, I think it's our job to inform them the best that we can, right? That's all. That's what informed consent is. Like you said, this is the journey. I don't know what detours you're going to take, but this is everything I know about the steps towards this.
And so making sure that they know that you are saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is important there.
Yeah,
I think so.
Agreed.
Cool. What else?
Paul's eyes are rolling.
No, I have some other thoughts, but I have a suggestion. I don't know if you guys saw the chat I sent to everybody. I have a suggestion.
Oh, no, I didn't see it.
So Randy runs a Patreon. Chiron runs a Patreon. I was thinking we could tell our stupid, we were dumb war stories about times we got hurt on Patreon. So we'll record that one for later. But anything else we want to add for the Facebook public live purposes? Randy, yes,
Nope.
no, maybe.
No, I'm not. I'm nodding to your chat. I forgot
Oh,
we were
okay.
on the camera. That's a good idea. Oh, I'm on camera.
Oh, okay, cool. That's right. Part of that head trauma thing.
It's really important that we sell the point that people coming up after us, right? People learning from us can learn a lot smarter, and to not glorify the mistakes that we made. So then now let's go to Patreon so you can pay extra money to hear about how the mistakes we made were way cooler than you guys.
Not
do
cooler.
that.
Look when we were stupid.
Yeah, mine's definitely not cooler.
Yeah.
So then there's going to be a balancing point too, though, between sticking with traditional methods that are tried and true and we know work versus throwing all that stuff out because there's a new way to do everything.
Right.
Well, I guess I'll close on the last point here.
Some,
I haven't asked this question. Oh,
Right
go ahead,
off.
Rory. Rory, you first.
Okay, because with the tradition, there's also something to be said about when the life expectancy was like 45 or 50, then you didn't have to worry about your knees. So they could do training methods that would destroy your knees by the time you were 70. So it's that some of the tradition rose in a traditional context where you were disposable, and we can't treat our students that way. A samurai was disposable.
So that
I
lines
think-
perfectly to my question. I guess it's raise your hand, but I would say substantively, I know the way I was trained and the way I train others there's a difference because of education I've onboarded that is not just stuff on the mat, right? So I guess to Jay's original question earlier, like how do we improve? How do we do whatever? That's one thing. You know, I try to be smarter. Not that it was bad coming up. You know, I did not have the trauma this poor 7-year-old had, but I try to take out some of the damage per se, not the bumps and the bruises, but the damage that I bore. And I'm going to get. I don't want to speak for anybody. Raise your hands, nod, whatever. I'm presuming I'm not the only one on the call who's done exactly that.
Yeah.
I think the goal, like as Roy said before, and we all probably agree, is our goal as a coach is to compress time, right? If we can't make you better than we got here, if it took me 10 years to get here, I should be able to get you there before 10 years. We should be compressing time and ideally compressing the horrific experiences in that time as well, right? So, being like, I know Kasey's got his ankle popped out, right? And be like, hey, guess what? This will pop your ankle out. Like, I can tell you because this happened to me. So if it's our job to compress the time, ideally it should be our job to compress the injuries as well. So we're not getting not compressed. We don't give all the injuries a small amount of time. What I'm trying to say is, yes, hurt faster. That's the goal. What I'm trying to say is we should be able to weed out some of the mistakes if we're actually looking at this in the proper way.
So
Doc's got
it's
something.
actionable.
The problem with that though is that puts everything as a rush. And I'm not so sure that the goal is to be more efficient, faster with things.
Sure.
I think that's a whole nother.
That's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
For self-defense, absolutely, you want them faster.
Yeah.
If they're
True.
doing a profession, you want them good fast. If they want to explore the art, then I do want the exploration to be more than intense. I want them to come to an understanding faster than I did. Because there were so many dead ends that I could have skipped.
My students know there's a rule on the mat. If I ever give a safety warning, I either had it done to me or I saw it happen to somebody else in real time. Like if I tell you don't hold the pad like this when you're taking knees because you're going to eat the pan, and you look at me like I'm stupid. No, I've seen more than a few people do exactly that. I try to lay out the bump points as best possible in learning ukemi. I will tell basically brand new, mostly adults because they'll get it, white belts. There is a virtual guarantee that you're going to bump your head 3 times. One is now while you're a white belt and you're learning and you don't quite know the timing of the fall. One is when you're somewhere between what we'd call yellow, black stripe because you just got cocky and you forgot to tuck your chin and not hit your head on the ground. And then one's around blue belt or brown belt where you thought your ukemi was pretty good and it was, and the other person's throw was just that much better and you're gonna take one. And if we do a pretty good job, it's only going to be 3 times. If you're slow to learn, it's going to be a few more than that. So I recommend tuck that chin. It is part and parcel of what we're doing here.
from a non-Japanese stylist, because I didn't go up the Japanese route. That's one of the things we celebrate. Yeah, I'm a loser. I get it. But from it was like,
We still like you.
While you were on the call.
I don't even know either. What's the point? When you're teaching our niece, like, it's kind of for me, like, you're gonna hit yourself with your stick. It's gonna happen. There's no way around it. So literally when it happens in class, I hear clunk. I'm like, now you're an anicador. Like, it becomes a celebration because you're gonna do it. It's gonna happen. And now you're part of the art because you clunked yourself in the head with your own weapon.
I was explaining to somebody the other day, that moment in time you hear that sound and the instructor knows exactly what just happened, even if it was on the other side of the room. You're like, we did it.
Okay, specific for Jay's question, I would just want to throw out 3 actionable tools. One is what I call honorable enemies, which surround yourself with the smartest friends you can that will tell you if there's new information out, if you're doing something wrong. You know, this is pretty much my group here. There are a couple more, but second, the after action debriefing, which I've written about and stuff, so you can actually examine your training, examine your teaching. There's a version of that. The third thing is the post instant. And basically, if and under any circumstances anyone gets hurt, then you investigate it. You dig down, you found out why. Sometimes it's an accident, there's nothing you can do. But sometimes there's a safety hole in your training, and that's the only way I know to find it. So when Paul says he gives a safety briefing because he's seen it happen, then the safety briefing becomes what you do to prevent it from happening again or changing something else. But so 3 actionable things to make it safer.
You just coincided perfectly with Jay's comment on Facebook. Interesting to consider how traditionally Sensei was proficient in the healing arts as well as the martial. So they could actually take care of the injuries. Now that's I know Randy's freaking out because of the old like school bone setting type thing. Ultimately, Jay, I think that was a triage thing to get you back onto the battlefield faster, not necessarily to fix you per se.
Or it's because Hollywood thought it was super cool.
Yeah.
I can ask people how they feel about their injuries.
Mom and their mom's injury.
How do you feel about that? All right. Well, I'm going to call the live part of the Facebook. I think we've got a few minutes. We're going to go private anyway, and I'll send you the video after the Randy. So gentlemen, thank you very much we tried to do this last night. Didn't work out. So we bounced it tonight. Worked out really, really well. An hour went by unbelievably fast. So that was a lot of fun. We may have to do something like this in the future. So that's it. Thank you guys very much.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Less ominous anyway. Real quick, Randy, where are people finding you?
At Randy King Live.
Doc?
Team Torque MMA.
And Mr. Keckeisen?
Biodye.com.
Or Violence Dynamics on Facebook?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Randy's like, yes, that thing too. And Mr. Miller right here.
Right here.
Not when we drag you onto social media, kicking and screaming.
Yes.
Yes.
You just wait till this tour. So much Rory on social media. Oh, yeah.
Randy, 30 seconds tour, go.
We got a tour coming up. The route's up. Join the group. We're done here.
That was holy shit. Did Randy just do that in 3 seconds or flat? That was awesome. All right, guys.
That's what my lady says. What?
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Facebook, and thank you guys for great questions. And you guys are very welcome. Thank you. I feel like we should be thanking you guys for joining, but we'll see you guys soon. I'm going to end the public if I can figure out how. Don't go anywhere, guys. Oh, there you go, Kasey.